Computer. Okay, very nice. A very good morning to all of you. A brief introduction about the Tejas community. We are a global community of cyber professionals. That's our website. We are a global project-oriented, vendor-agnostic community. We are a self-sustained community. We are open to all. And our mission is to touch maximum number of people and create maximum impact in our lifetime. So that we have one life to live. So we want to make sure we create maximum impact. These are the few things that we work on. Project C, which is path for to CXO. E stands for entrepreneurship. So we want everyone to create the ladder versus climbing the ladder. So there's a huge emphasis on entrepreneurship. Project S stands for skills, so technical management life skills. So this session is actually under Project S. Then we also focus on Project H, which is for health, that how do we get people started on their own journey, because their journey, not ours, to make sure they handle adversity with equanimity, so that they can utilize all their God-given talent. And the one project we launched recently was Project J, which was to make sure that we help people with transition in case they have our long-term SLA is to get people placed using the
Good
cloud
night.
within 2 weeks. Can you mute yourself, please?
Me join பண்ணிருக்கியா?
Excuse me. Mute all.
இருதானா?
Sorry about that. So that's our long-term goal. It's not real right now, but we want to make sure that people are happy and thriving versus surviving in their jobs. This session is AI security is huge, it's pretty deep as well, and everyone is talking about AI agents and the different things you can automate when it comes to security. So this session is about, it's a very simple one, it's not super complex, and the idea is that anyone can do it. If I can do it, who is not a developer, I'm sure I think of myself as an average Joe, anybody can do it. So the first question is like, how did this agentic or agent conversation came up? So this was the OpenAI's 5-level roadmap, which quote unquote got leaked, and started with conversational AI, which was these chatbots, Chat GPT, and so on. Then you had the reasoning, the next level, where you could reason, and it will tell you that this is how I'm thinking, and it will show you step by step. And the next level was autonomous AI, where you have agents can do tasks autonomously. And we'll talk a little bit about what does like an agent really mean. And it could do it autonomously for days without supervision. It could be concurrent and so on. There could be some delegation happening, some orchestration happening. And level 4 and level 5, which are more towards moving towards artificial general intelligence. So we are definitely at like level 3 right now, kind of maturing, and slowly we're moving towards there, where everyone claiming that it will happen in 3 months, 6 months, a year, or so on. um, the biggest question, like, how does an agent actually differ from some automated scripts? So, we always had automation. People had scripts where you could schedule them, you could bash them together. You say, hey, do it at 1 a.m. in the night and whatnot. So, like, what is an AI agent and how is it different from typical workflow automation? So, pretty much the few distinct features. One, an agent can interact with the environment, it can gather data, and you can specify certain goals. This is what I want to achieve, and the agent will figure out how to achieve those goals. So it's a little bit autonomous in that way, the independence in that way. And one key thing which was not there earlier was that there was no reasoning core. So now we have these large language models. So the agent can actually interact with the LLM. And the second, and very important, the concept of tools. So, for example, like if you had to achieve, like you are writing a research paper, you will get online, you'll research, you will go to databases, maybe you use some tool to present your findings in nice manner. Maybe you prepare a presentation and so on. So similar, the concept of an in the same concept as tools when it comes to the agentic world. And a tool could be a web browser. It could be, if you're creating tickets, it could be Atlassian. If you're creating tickets in GitHub, it could be GitHub. And the other question is like how these tools are going to interact with these agents. So that's where the whole model context protocols comes into play. Earlier, developers had to write custom code between every single AI agent or one agent to multiple tools, which could be Asana, GitHub, and so on. Now, with the MCP protocol in between, they just have to talk to this middleware where integrations can be built. So it's basically you have a standard way to talk to all these tools versus writing custom code, which is simply cannot be upgraded. It's not scalable. The other few key things, one, there's always an element of human control. How much is there? I mean, a human definitely needs to provide the input that set the goals that this is what I want the agent to do. And then you could have multiple check-ins where basically the agent is asking questions, or if human sees certain thing and can intervene and whatnot. There's also this concept of delegation. So an agent says, okay, this is what you're asking me to do, then I'm going to delegate this task to others. And the other, again, important concept, which is different from typical workflow automation, is the concept of memory, which is short-term and long-term memory, that it can actually maintain context. And if we see in this diagram, you have these tools, which could be API calls, code interpreters, or you can access the internet and do certain things. You can do research and so on. Everyone with me so far, give me a thumbs up. Okay, very nice. Um,
So
so
Anshu, I think if I, so what you're saying is, I'm sorry, what you're saying is that the main way in which agents differ from what we have is that there is the LLM aspect,
yes,
there is the reasoning aspect,
yes,
and there is the context holding aspect.
yes, yes.
And it's um,
Tools.
the reasoning aspect, which is basically allowing it to interact and fetch data from multiple tools. um, MCP helps simplify that part of it, because now you are
Yeah.
able to scale the ecosystem by not needing an agent per tool that you have to interact, because the more tools you can interact with, the, I guess, the better tuned your output is, right? But
Yes.
MCP plays there and helps simplify that ecosystem through a
Yeah.
standardized
Yes.
interface. Okay.
So, for example, like you see this box where the tool says, ideally between the AI agent, there should be a MCP box. Otherwise, these will be, a lot of arrows to all of these tools. Also, there's a lot of confusion between MCP and A2A. So this is like one agent, and the agent could be from different vendors. Like um, maybe Workday has their own agent, Salesforce has their own agent. So, and these agents need to talk to each other. And when they talk, you have to make sure they don't share context. Maybe they share limited context about the whole picture, but each agent will have access to its own set of data. So Workday has more HR data, Atlassian has more ticket data, and so on. Asana has project management data. So maybe they know the bigger picture, but the Asana agent shouldn't have access to Workday data. So this is actually again not a very mature thing, is which is how these agents talk to each other in a secure fashion, where they're not the scope of the data shared is only relevant to the task which is being asked and not everything. How do you set these boundaries? So you have the A2A protocol, which was developed by Google. It was donated to Linux Foundation, and IBM was developing a competing protocol, ACP, Agent Control Protocol, which they donated to Linux Foundation. and ACP has been merged with A2A protocol. And there was something Cisco was also working called the Beehive protocol. Uh, I think that there's still some development happening there, but I think that also is now under Linux Foundation. So MCP is agent to multiple tools. So you don't have to write code for every single tool. You have MCP in between. And A to A, if you have totally different agents, how these agents talk to each other. And in fact, like, if someone claims that they have agentic architecture with all these agents doing different things, the question you should ask them is how are these agents talking to each other? So are they using the A2A protocol? They're using ACP. What are they actually using? My understanding is since A2A is not super mature, all of this is custom code. So, people who are saying that, they have it figured out, I don't think they have figured out because for A2A specifically, there has been no release since July when it was donated. So if there's no release, it hasn't matured. MCP is seeing active development. They're releasing new security features and it's being adopted in a big way. But A2A, I haven't seen things moving. Good question though, Arti. I think this helped, I think, everyone.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay. Moving on. So again, like agents also like it's not just like magic that you have an agent and it will do everything and it's all powerful, omnipresent, potent agent. So agents can also have, I would say, levels. A very simple agent maybe does this one, maybe a few things. Then you have autonomous agent, which is like basically you say, this is what I want to achieve, and it goes out and it figures out. Like one example could be like doing research on a trip, finding a ticket for you, booking hotels, checking weather during that day. So you say give a set of objectives that this is I want, and then you leave it to it, and then it basically runs on its own based on your parameters, which you have provided to it. Or it could be human in the loop agent. So, for example, there was a um, report around Anthropic, which released where they said we have this autonomous agent, we are seeing AI being used to launch an attack and so on. But if you look at the actual report, basically they had human in the loop at multiple stages. So it was not autonomous. Also, the people who launched the attack took a very long time to develop the whole architecture. And then the execution piece was fast because everything was developed, but they did spend a lot of time doing development to launch their attack. And then even then they had like someone provided the targets that this is what you do. Um, but there were elements of automation in the sense the report writing was automated. Um, they worked in shifts. So how do you make sure the next shift knows what stage of the attack they are? So a lot of things were automated, but they still had there was a diagram in that report which actually showed that these are all the places where there was human in the loop. So
Hi,
basically, we talked
Anshu.
about the concept of tools. Then the other part is orchestration, and this is where some of those frameworks will come into play, and we'll talk a little bit more about orchestration. And guardrails are, which is how do you make sure that you are developing this thing and someone can't launch a prompt injection attack. And each of the platforms are coming up with their own guardrails. So, for example, Azure has the content safety filters where when the output comes, you want to make sure that it's not offensive and so on. So there are different kind of guardrails, like for toxicity, for making sure it's not leaking confidential secrets and whatnot. And structured output that whenever machines talk typically in structured formats through a JSON text, JSON file or something, JavaScript object notification. But when humans read it, it has to look like English language. So when agents are talking to each other, they need it in a machine readable format, which is standardized like JSON. But when it comes to human, you need to translate that data back to humans when it has to be output a little bit more structured. Okay. These are some of the benefits, is like faster time to signal. You don't really need to intervene as much. You do want repeatable and accurate results. And this is very important because uh, and this is like you can achieve programmatically, like you can set the temperature as zero, so it will be more deterministic. Usually AI is very probabilistic, so literally you ask a question to ChatGPT, which is the best poem in the world, so maybe it will tell you this is the best poem in the world, and maybe you ask it again, it will give you a different answer. So but when you're doing security, you want it to be deterministic versus probabilistic. You also want to make sure that if you do certain like we'll see in the session today, you don't want it to like spend millions of dollars doing something, so you want to make sure that you're cost aware and you set those parameters, and I'll show you how you can do that in OpenAI platform. These are some of the use cases. You can triage, you can do log analysis, so wherever there's a lot of human involvement, you can use agents to do it better. So for orchestration, which is how do you make sure that you can manage memory, you can manage these tools, you can have this multi-agent coordination, and how do you even integrate? Like, you need to talk to OpenAI or Claude or other tools. Then your code should be able to talk to these large language models. So they speak one language, and if you write some code using XYZ programming language, maybe Python, but you want it to be able to talk to these LLMs. So this is translation or orchestration or coordination happens using these frameworks, and there are quite a few of them. So there are some. So there's some of them are based on usability or functionality. Like maybe you want something which is like drag and drop, super easy, no code. So there's like Zapier, you have different GPTs. Then you have the low code or friendly frameworks like Crew AI, LangChain. So Crew AI is the one which I saw the most of the people like who have done some development. So I highly recommend checking out Crew AI if you want to like start. It was not like that difficult to get, was fairly easy install and so on. And then you have the advanced framework like AutoGen, semantic kernel, and so on. So in this session, we're going to use Crew AI. So one was on usability, and the second one is based on domain. So for example, if you're doing something very complex and it has workflows, then you use LangChain, AutoGen, Crew AI can also do advanced use cases. If you are using some data heavy apps, Llama Index, Haystack, if you're doing chatbots, voice, something called Rasa, and if you're doing some visual fast prototyping, Langflow, and if you're doing like hardcore production, then AutoGen, CrewEye, or LangGraph might be better choices. So again, I would say like if you are doing something, CrewEye has a lot of examples out there in terms of people who have developed agents. So that would be a good place to start if you're looking at what framework should I choose for orchestration. Uh, Now the question is like, okay, like now you've decided I want to develop an agent. So you'll have to make some decisions. The first one is platform, which is, am I going to do it or locally? So, you download Llama on your desktop, or you are going to have an agent which is basically talk to an LLM via an API. So basically, OpenAI has an API, Anthropic has an AI, Vertex, which is Google. They all have APIs. So what you do is when your agent runs, it calls the LLM via an API, and you have to do that API integration. You have to get an API key. You need to fund your uh, you need to pay these guys in terms of tokens. So you need to put some money in, because when a query will go from your agent to these LLM providers, they're not going to do it for free. They're going to ask some money. There's a free tier and some of them, but usually it requires money, or there's a trial that you can use for testing purposes. But again, if you don't pay anything, you say, hey, I don't want to pay, I don't want to put my credit card, local might be the option for you. Then you basically choose a model, and really advanced agents can basically choose a model on the fly based on the task that is being asked to do them. That, oh, you are asking me to do some coding, so maybe Claude 3.5 Sonnet is a better. Oh, you're asking me to do some image analysis, maybe the Gemini model is a little bit better. So really advanced agents can actually choose different models to do specific jobs. Um, the environment, so this is I would say, like the most tricky part where a lot of people just give up. And developers have I would say, advantage that, the dev environment is completely set up. They just need to make few changes and, it will works. But for people who are not, developers by, training, or, they're not in dev roles, this is the most challenging part. And we'll go through so that you can get started on that journey. Next part is like, what kind of memory do you want to have? Short term, which is like more conversation history, or you want to have long term where you want to, connect it to a vector database so that it can maintain context for long. And then you have the concept of guardrails. So many of these platforms provide, like Azure has their own guardrails, which you can configure, and you can configure policies and so on. So, and the good thing is, it's like there's a lot of documentation around it, how to put these guardrails in place. Where prompt injection is the biggest one. You don't want someone to hack into your system and, get uh, your agent to do things which are not kosher. And you also don't want to leak data, because if you have given access to a data source, you don't want any data leakage as well. So now we'll go a little bit more in the technical details. And I would recommend that if you have something open on, I'll go very slow. So let's make sure that, if, you can tinker in parallel as well. So for this one, this agent which we're going to develop today, um, some really basic functionality that you give it an IP address, and it can do a lookup for a geolocation. It can do who is searches. It can also check using some blacklists, like what's the reputation of this IP. And at the end, you want some sort of risk rating and a human readable report. So literally, like for example, when you see an IP in a log, you want to, you will go to some website, unless you have like, some tool where it will tell you there's some integrations through thread feeds, and it will tell you everything about that IP. Hey, this IP looks bad. This is like a command and control center and whatnot. But what if, you just had an IP and you want to have your own personal agent? So I used a few, only three. You can basically have a fairly large list of things which can be, done for an investigation on an IP. I just did three for this use case today, so that to keep it simple. Um, so basically, uh, we want different agents doing different things. So we have these tasks. So we have an agent doing different tasks. So the first one was enrichment. So we want to return its geolocation, RDAP data. So RDAP is the Registration Data Access Protocol, which is, the successor to the WHOIS protocol. You get the domain name, you get the registry information, and so on. And you also want the ASN, which is the Autonomous System Number, in JSON format. So basically, what group of networks it belongs to. And then the second task you want to do is reputation. So you want to get DNS bill status plus codes. So DNS bill is the domain name system blacklist, which basically will tell you that, oh, this IP was used to spam people and so on. So you can actually block it. So it will give you the reputation of that IP. The third thing which we want is a nice human readable report, which has the risk rating, recommended actions, and a human summary. So these are three tasks we want the agent to perform. So for today, we're going to use OpenAI. For orchestration, we're going to use Crew AI. These are the data sources, and again, they're all free. Because I wanted to run, I don't know, pay more. I definitely paid, um, you to OpenAI platform, and I'll show you how it looks like. But these are all open source, free resources. And to develop the agent, I use Python. So if you are you don't have a dev environment set up completely, so uh, the first thing you need to do is install like package manager like Brew. So you can basically just go to the site brew.sh, and you can copy this command. So open your terminal window and copy paste this. So basically it install Brew on your machine. Many times people will have issues installing it. And I think what I found is that if you add sudo, which is, it gives you kind of admin access, it will ask you for your password. But if you copy paste this in your terminal, but if it doesn't run, add sudo in front of it, it will ask for you for the admin password and it will install it. So it's a permissions issue. Second step is you need pip, which is the standard package manager for Python. It does come with uh, Python, and if it's not there, then these are the steps that you can use to reinstall it. First, verify it, and then actually let me see if I can share my screen, and I'll show you. Share, stop share. Where's my terminal window? I'm going to open a new window. And I'm going to increase the font size. So actually, let me run some of these commands so it like looks comfortable to everyone. Share terminal. Okay. So everyone can see my terminal.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Give me a sec here. Okay, where did my Chrome go? Escape. So if you see that, I did Python 3, version, it told me that on the main directory I had 3.14 installed, but in my demo directory I had 3.12.2. So this one doesn't work with CrewEye. So that was a mistake I didn't have, like gave me a lot of headache before I realized that, CrewEye had a dependency. The other mistake I see is that, whenever you run a command, basically if you see like a lot of online instructions, they'll have only Python, version, but uh, you actually need to, say Python 3. So if you are using some online tutorial which says Python, with some option, just add a 3 because that's the like latest version, Python 3. So that will make sure that your command runs. So that's like a very typical mistake which I see people doing. Um, and so I think I already have Brew installed, but let me see. So see, like it asked me for that's So I entered my password. So this is the password to my laptop. And basically, we'll enter to continue or the key to a bot. Okay, so next we want to check is if pip is there. Okay, I think it's going to do control X. Battle, okay, updating homebrew. Not in the working tree, yeah. So yeah, it's basically like, all my setup is in my another directory. So stop share. Okay. Innate. Just share my screen again. So I'll try to like switch between the two. Make sure that people get comfortable. Slideshow. So basically, like we talked about, oops, homebrew. Then you need the package manager. So these are two like must-haves because you'll ask to do run commands and whatnot. So you have to make sure that you have those to install before you move further. Usually, if you install Python, you don't need to install pip again, but you can double check using this command pip version. So it will tell you, and this command will actually force upgrade or install it if it's not there. So to install Python, basically, you just enter brew install Python at 3.12 and it will install Python. And then if you want to check if it got installed, basically you just say it will tell you the version number. If you're going to do any development work, you do need a local instance of Git. And I'll actually like walk you through the GitHub setup as well. So you can download GitHub Desktop, and basically it includes Git. You will also need the GitHub command line interface, so you can download it. You go to this website or you just type this command. So, and it's very interesting that Brew basically manages all these packages, so it knows that when you say brew install GitHub GH, that you're asking for the GitHub command line interface. So all the backend work of what the GH means, which is the latest package. So Homebrew knows it. So you don't need to like basically if you just type this command, it will just download the whole thing. Then if you will be writing all the code in your GitHub repo, and basically you need to make a clone on your local desktop. So in the next I'll show you how the GitHub repo looks like and what are some of the things I've done there. Escape. Everyone sees my GitHub screen. Give me a thumbs up.
Yes, Anshu.
Okay. So basically, I created this GitHub repo, and basically it'll ask you a few things, what kind of license that you want to have it. So MIT license is the best because it's open source and so on. It's important to set it up because typically, like if you don't have it set up, sometimes when you're trying to run code or compile stuff, it will give you an issue. So make sure when you create it, you choose a license. So there's a license file there. Um, so this is like basically like the command for you. Once you've installed the GitHub CLI, you just copy it and run it on your terminal, and it will create a local copy of this whole thing on your machine. So then you have an ID. You can actually make changes directly uh, to these files here. So right now, this is the read-only version. So if I edit this file, I can actually make changes directly here. And if I make any change, then basically I have to commit it. So either I can commit directly to the main directory, or I can basically commit to a branch, and then someone reviews it and pushes it to the main branch. So since this is just me developing code, I don't have a team. Basically, I would, if I make a change, I would push, commit to directly to. So then I made a change in the cloud version, and to make sure that the changes that you made in your environment um, come back to your local instance, you have to run a simple command. It's called git pull. So git space pull, and it will make a copy of the whatever the changes you made. So for example, I entered 10 lines here. I committed, but it's on the cloud version of GitHub. It's not on your machine yet. And when I come down and I say git pull, and before git pull works, it will ask you to authenticate. So there is a little bit of a step involved where you have to create either a personal access token, or it will actually, you can also do, yeah, online as well. So again, fairly simple to do. If you have GitHub desktop, you're authenticated. Otherwise, you can come here and copy paste your personal access token whenever it asks you for authentication. And once you are authenticated, it doesn't ask you again and again. So it kind of logs you on at the terminal level. Um, so this is the code for the tools. And basically, I'll make this GitHub repo public, and I'll share as I'll send a comment, sorry, a blast to everyone who attended, and you will get a link to the GitHub repo. So again, the beautiful thing is that if you want to get something these days, you can go to any of these tools, and you can basically either you will find a lot of code which other people have written if you want to tinker around, or you can actually ask many of these, Claude Code or ChatGPT or Gemini, and you can tell them what specific thing that you want to achieve, and they'll actually generate code for you. Source. So this is the main one which will kick off. Okay, so that's one piece. We talked about GitHub. Going to do a slideshow. So next one is installing Crew AI. So one, Crew AI itself has a lot of tutorials and whatnot, but honestly, it's super simple to use it. So you need to have at least 3.10. So you need to do the Python double dash version to find out if you have Python installed, like previously. If you're doing a brand new install, like it shouldn't matter. You just have to make sure that you install 3.12. And if you just do like a straight Python install, you will get the latest version. But I had a lot of issues, and so I would recommend 3.12. So literally you go to your terminal and you type this command, pip3 install crew AI. You do pip3 install crew AI tool. So it has like a tools package to do other things. So you install the tools as well. And literally it's a copy paste. Then you also install DNS Python. So it's not installed with the standard Python. You have to do you have to install DNS Python. It does some network centric things. So it's actually like a Python library, which you can use to resolve domain names to IP addresses, or you can use to perform reverse DNS lookups. So, you can get IPs, you can get IP to hostname mappings, and you can run a specialized query for MX and NS records. So if you just have Python, it won't work. You do need DNS Python as well. And so pip is the package manager, and it said, hey, pip install DNS Python, and it knew. Okay, next slide. Yeah, troubleshooting tips. So basically, like honestly, the biggest problem I had, was setting up the environment. So these were the few things which I ran into. One, you do need to make sure Git is installed. So either you install GitHub Desktop, so Git will come with GitHub Desktop, or you download Apple Xcode if you're doing other development on Swift and whatnot. You can download Apple provides its own IDE called Xcode, and you can install uh, Git using this command. Second problem, especially for Crew AI, was I basically was missing a Rust compiler. So if you go to this, the Rust website, which is rustup.rs, and it will actually give you this command. So it's literally right on the first page. You copy and you paste in your terminal, and it will install the Rust compiler. The other problem, which some people will face, is that they'll try to run the whole thing at the command prompt, especially once you have developed the scripts and you have the program. So you have to make sure that you are in a virtual environment, so it kind of sets up its own dependencies and everything. So you run this command, and then after that you have to activate it. So literally you copy paste this command, and most of the developers will have they'll have few things scripted out that they enter one thing, and basically the whole environment is set up for you. Many of the companies will also have it everything scripted, but if you don't have it set up, you'll have to do it one by one. So you type in Python 3 minus m when in the, and then you have to activate it. So you copy paste or you type in this command, and it will activate your virtual environment. I think we already talked about if you try to do Python plus anything, it doesn't run, then you use Python 3. If you have an old dev environment, which was in my case, I had a lot of things set up, but they're all like, really old versions, deprecated. So I updated all the packages and utilities. Especially like I had really old versions of pip and brew. So I ran, upgrade pip. I upgraded homebrew. I already had it, but I had an old versions. The setup tools which come with pip. So I, and upgraded them as well. The other one was very interesting, which I had to do some research on, which was this specific file called cargo.2ml. And basically, it has it's like a literal file. I'll show you, what the file looks like. And in the dependency section, uh, you basically have to specify. So like, and I'll show you what version I have. And you can find the latest version on this site called craze.io. So this was like really edge case. I think this is very specific to Crew AI, but this is an exact problem I ran into. So I'll show you now the actual file. So literally like, my code won't compile. And the only thing I had to do was basically create this file called cargo.2ml. And then I had to, insert these two lines. So literally I can, change anything here and, and then I can commit changes. So this was like a really edge case for me, at least, when I was, uh, and I'll actually show you that how I, used actually Claude to troubleshoot some of this stuff. Might show. So, so I was like actually getting this error. So I went to Claude and said, I'm still just getting when try to install CrewEye. And I copy pasted the error and basically say, hey, there's a version incompatibility. So honestly, for me, there was no able to understand like what does the errors mean, and I could have got confused. I just copy pasted the whole error message. And honestly, this is one reason the debugging of the dev environment setup is many of the reason why people give up on programming. So programming is beautiful, Um, it's just like syntax. It's just writing like English language. Once you understand the grammar, you can form perfect sentences. Some people are elegant at speaking or writing. So same way, some people are elegant at writing good code. But you can still write good code without everyone can speak, everyone can write a little bit if they're educated. The same thing is code. But the biggest problem I saw is debugging of the dev environment. And a lot of people just give up on programming or trying to do what we are trying to do today because that it just doesn't work. You get all these errors and you're like, hey, this is too hard, I'm going to give up. But the good thing is, like many of these LLM tools, you can just copy paste errors and you can find workarounds. So, for example, the cargo.2ml issue, I think I put, I did a Google search. I also asked, Claude. So, I use both Google searches and Claude to figure out the version numbers and so on. But that gave me a pretty hard time. And honestly, like I'm not a developer, I had no clue like what cargo.ml does, and if there's a dependency and I need to put this 2 lines of code there for this to work. Uh, then once you've installed Crew AI, you actually have to make sure to installed. So basically, you just run the simple command pip show Crew AI, and these are the results you will get. So it will show you the version number. It will give you a little bit summary. And it's very interesting. There's a guy who put his name there, so he must be a very smart guy. Joao Maura. He is correctly has the email as well, or maybe it's just generic email. So there must be some history behind it. Okay. So next one is okay. We downloaded the orchestration tool to our desktop. And the next step is setting up the LLM integration. So we need OpenAI to talk to a local instance. So I'll show you how to get the API key, and then basically there are 2 ways to use it. If you want like only for the session, you literally copy this command, export OpenAPI key, and you copy paste your API key from OpenAI platform. But if you want like a more permanent solution that you don't want to do this every time, you can create an environment file and you put in your root directory and you enter this one line. And if you have multiple API keys, you enter them on separate lines. Most important thing is that there is a file called git ignore, which makes sure that you're not uploading secrets to the cloud. So you make sure that you add .env to your git ignore file. So now I'll show you how it looks like. So one, this is different from ChatGPT. So if you have a ChatGPT subscription, it doesn't mean that you have access to API key. So you literally have to go to platform.openai and buy a subscription. So I went there, I paid um, some money to them. Just did it yesterday. So it seems it already used like $6 for my testing. Auto recharge is on and so on. And then I created an API key. So literally you can just hit create new API key. You can give it a name. You can choose the default project. And then you can have different levels of permission. That is it only a read only, is it restricted or all, or it's some sort of service account. The only trick here is that when it creates the key, you have to make sure you copy paste it in whatever, either in your local file or somewhere, because you don't get to see it again. So for example, like once this key has been created, I can't hyperclick. If I go to edit, basically I can't see the actual key. Else it will show me the name. So when you create the key, you will see the actual key, which is very long, only one. So that's again was interesting. Make sure.
So, Anshu, how much of this can you do with the free version? Like, or
So it
do you
depends
get
on how much like
included?
your
So,
agents are doing. Like if it's a very complex task, it will But I think you can set limits here. So for example, I set a limit of $100 that don't go above $100. So yeah, we talked about the API keys. We talked about the dot environment file. So again, in this session, we're not going to do it, but I mean, you can put a lot of guardrails. So most of the platform provide the guardrails. You can do tuning as well. Again, the demo I'm going to show you doesn't have intelligent model selection, but those are the next steps that, how do you introduce guardrails? How do you continue tuning it and so on? No, no, thank you. Give me a sec. So I'm going to open the terminal. Now share my terminal. We don't have much time. And I hope, again, like the demo gods are with me. So share my screen. Where did it go? Terminal AI. Okay, so it worked till yesterday. So I hope it works today as well. So again, one thing is like you can run the previous commands, just using your screen. So for example, I said, oh, what version I have? So I Python 3 version. And it told me I have 3.12.12 because as we talked, Crew AI was not working with 3.14, which is the latest version. So I had to install this exact version. And um, so again, so if you looked when we looked at the GitHub repo, my main repo was main.py. So this is where all the code is. And basically, the only thing I'm going to do is execute this main.py, and I'm going to provide it an argument. So 8.8 is actually I think the Cloudflare IP address. So you can put any IP address. And I hope it works. Let's see. So basically what's going to do is, so in the code, it's going to call, three different tasks. One is going to enrich it. One is going to do the geolookup. So these are all different tasks which are going in concurrent manner. So this is again the beauty of these orchestration tools, that you can have all these performing concurrently. So I think it's started. So I'll try to decipher some of this. Actually, I'll go at the bottom. So I think it's still working actually. This is only the first one. Since it's the only first one, I can talk RDAP lookup, tool execution completed, agent started. Yep. So it's still working in the backend. So it says crew execution started. That it says enrich this thing, and basically, I want a JSON in the JSON format, and I want all these details: geo, RDAP ownership, ASN details. The agent started. It's doing the IP enrichment, tool execution. So tool was to do exact geo lookup. And these are the arguments which was sent to the tool. So there's one specific tool called geo, and it got sent to there, and it completed, and it gave me this output. So again, if you look, it's pretty long. So this is machine readable, and the final report should have human readable. So now you have RDAP lookup. So when we had geo lookup, now you have the RDAP lookup. And it gave me all this detail. So again, this is like fairly, if you see amphitheater, Rock Mountain View, fairly long list of data, contact google.com and so on. Now, tool execution was ASN lookup, and I provided an argument of 8.8. So it found execution completed. It again, we did use Team Simru, which was a free version to check, the was blacklisted and whatnot. So basically, this is it gave me geo. So if you listen more clean now, it's like geo status, where is it IP from, the RDAP details. Now I want to check the reputation. So again, all this happening. So we use a spam house Zen tool, which is a free tool. I didn't want to pay. So this is the task reputation. So this agent does. So this is a different agent which does reputation and block list analysis. So it ran only one tool, which is so the previous ran three tools. This ran only one tool, which is the spam house Zen check. And it came with that, hey, this is true, supported. And this was the domain name service blacklist results. So this was the reputation assessment. So, oh, yes, I did the job. The next one was security report writer. So I got all this data now to write a clean report. So this is where it will use the LLM at the backend. And it said, this is this, service rating, task completion, crew completion executed, the result. So this is the final human readable. It says IP is registered to Google. RDAP data confirms abuse content with Google. The IP is listed on as potential suspicious bad activity, which was interesting. The risk rating is medium. Verifying blacklist entry. Blah, blah, blah. So again, fairly simple use case, and I think the idea of that today's session was just people get an idea of to about that you can do it too. It's fairly simple. Install Python, install Crew AI. You can ask many of these tools to give you code. So you literally say, I want to do this thing. You will get a code in Python. Set up your environment, run it. You do have to provide OpenAI key or Anthropic Claude key, whichever tool you're using in the backend, uh, to make sure that you are able to use LLM for reasoning. Tools, the code for the tools was actually written. So if you saw in the GitHub repo, there was a tools directory in which all of these tools are there. I'm going to show it again.
Anshu, will you be sharing these slides?
So I think for Tejas executive members, yes, they'll be getting a recording as well. So if you go to the tools, so these are where it's, they take the parameters and, they do all these checks. So again, a lot of this basically you can, ask many of these LM tools to provide you the code. You don't have to write from scratch. Very nice. So that was it for today. Really appreciate everyone joining. We do have a tradition where everyone turns on their camera and says hello. So if everyone can turn on their cameras and we wave our hands.
Hello.
Hello.
And if if you like the session, write a post on LinkedIn what you learned, tag me. So that's like your way of paying me back, I guess. Also, feel free to join the Tejas community. We are doing a lot of interesting stuff. We have a Slack community, we have a WhatsApp community. So we share information almost on a daily basis there. So we have very hardworking and smart people in the community. Feel free to join the community. But it was a pleasure to have all of you this. I hope I got some of it. Like everyone can do it. I mean, it's not that hard. Install Python, install Crew AI, make an integration to OpenAI, get the OpenAI key, and run it. So it's not that hard. Anyone can do it. I used um, I used uh, I used only three use cases. You can start with just one use case. Let's do one. So I have just one tool. So inside I had three. You can start with just one, but it's fairly simple to do, not super complicated. Then we can make it more complex. You want to have longer memory. We want to connect it to a RAG database for longer memory holding. We can do complex workflows. So this was a very simple use case, for demo purposes. But again, this is completely doable. So yeah, everyone hasn't turned their camera on. This is a tradition. We turn our cameras on and we wave to each other and wish us.
Thanks so much, Anshu. This was
Michael,
great.
Travis, we're waiting for you. Suchit is joining us from Orissa. Rahul, Dekal, Angelica.
Thanks for
Hey,
the
I
session, Anshu.
have a quick question. Why did you go with Crew AI for agent orchestration instead of an 8.8 or all of the other agent orchestration tools?
So that was the simplest. That's a simple answer. The others too, all of them have their own quirks. So feel free to use any which you're comfortable with. But with that, we end today's session. Really appreciate all of you joining. Best wishes.
Anshu, one
Thank
question.
you.
If we have any follow-up questions, where
You
can I
can ping me
email?
directly. You can ping me. You have to be
Okay.
respectful of everyone's
Okay.
time. So I'm going to, hang up. I have another meeting as well. I have to go actually somewhere. So, but we can, always ping me for questions or join
Sounds
Tejas.
good.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.